And we lead with this. The United States has condemned what it labeled the South African government's recent detention of U.S. officials in relation to an operation conducted by Home Affairs and law enforcement officials in Johannesburg, in which 7 Kenyan nationals were arrested for violating the country's immigration laws. In response, Home Affairs Minister Dr. Schreiber put out a lengthy statement explaining that Kenyan officials working illegally by processing Afrikaner refugee applications on behalf of the United States were arrested and issued deportation orders, and that no U.S. officials were arrested. Schreiber further flagged that the presence of foreign officials apparently coordinating with undocumented workers, raising serious questions about intent and diplomatic protocol. DIRCO has since echoed these sentiments.
The recent deportation of 7 Kenyan nationals by the Department of Home Affairs was conducted in strict accordance with South African immigration law. These individuals were engaged in work without the necessary work permits. The government will not negotiate its sovereignty and the implementation of the rule of law. Separately, we have noted an unsubstantiated allegation regarding the private information of U.S. officials. South Africa treats all matters of data security with utmost seriousness and operates under stringent legal and diplomatic protocols. We categorically reject any suggestion that a state official or there was any state involvement in such actions. Nonetheless, we remain committed to principled and transparent diplomacy. Official channels have been opened with the United States government to seek clarity on this allegation and to reinforce that our bilateral engagements must be grounded in mutual respect and factual dialogue.
Well, let's speak to Crispin Piri on this for more. He's the DIRCO spokesperson. Crispin, does the South African diplomatic channels feel that the U.S. had violated a level of trust that's required around the staffing of certain officials, particularly those that process ambassadorial as well as, at its consular services on its behalf? In this instance, it seemed to have, through a third party, employed the services of those who were not adequately and correctly documented for it. Does the South African government feel disrespected by this?
Hello?
Crispin, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Well, we have seen indeed that in this latest iteration of a statement from the U.S. now, the South African government is being accused, firstly, of arresting U.S. officials who were on the site. And the Home Affairs officials have categorically stated that that didn't happen. But secondly, now there's this accusation of doxing or that's releasing to the public information about U.S. officials. And it's not clear how the South African government is involved in this and whether this information was released by the South African government at all. But we have said quite clearly to the U.S., our channels of communication remain open. And these are things that we can definitely look at to address. If indeed there's been a breach of protocol by the South African government officials, that's something that we do take seriously and something that we do want to address in earnest. But what we will not negotiate is our sovereign laws and immigration laws being broken. And that is something that we take very seriously and we will enforce without any fear or favor.
So just for clarity, it was only 7 Kenyan nationals that were arrested, detained and deported, not any U.S. ambassadorial or consular staff?
No U.S. staff were arrested at all. There was at some point to obtain clarity on who the individuals on the site were, and it was the officials were then advised that some of these were U.S. officials, but they were never at any point detained. And as is claimed by the U.S. So that's a point, that's a misstatement from the U.S. officials.
Yeah. The timing of this is also quite curious, Crispin, given that the appointment of Leo Bozel III is quite at an advanced stage and would ostensibly soon be deployed by Trump to South Africa. And of course, he comes on the back of this in the next couple of weeks. One would imagine that this makes the initial engagement to be quite tense. And of course, DIRCO is still applying its mind to whether or not they would be receiving and accepting the credentials that would be presented by Leo Bozo III, who has had a number of disparaging things to say about South Africa. What's the sentiment around DIRCO pertaining to not just the timing of this incident, but also given that the appointment of Leo Bozo III is at quite an advanced stage?
Well, that's for the U.S. to process, and that's their internal processes, and we will not be commenting on how they appoint their ambassadors and what that process entails. But safe to say that definitely this has been an ongoing engagement between us and the U.S. from February, the beginning of this year, when we saw the executive order, which had falsehood in it and still maintains those falsehoods. We continue to maintain that there is no legal basis to claim that Afrikaners, one, are being persecuted in South Africa, or even that there's a white genocide taking place. All of this misinformation has been at the behest of the Americans, and now we've seen them acting in accordance with that misinformation, which is wholly misplaced. There is no Afrikaner persecution in South Africa, and definitely this is one of the most rare cases in the world where refugees, so-called refugees, are being processed from a place where they are allegedly being persecuted. It's completely unheard of. And that really shows the gravity of the situation, or the level of misnomer that we're dealing with here. So we have categorically stated quite consistently, and we will not tire to do so, because history is on our side and the facts are on our side, that there is no white genocide taking place and Afrikaners are not being persecuted. Yes, we have our own challenges, and we are determined to address those challenges. But in addressing those challenges, I think it's very clear that we do not need the help of external forces. Where we do require that help, we will be able to do so through the diplomatic channel. And I think we're very clear that no foreign entity should insert itself in South Africa's domestic issues.
I mean, Crispin, given how strong you feel about that, perhaps let me try my luck one more time. Will South Africa confirm the appointment of a U.S. ambassador that seems to perpetuate exactly that misinformation?
Oliver, we're not one to engage in hypotheticals. So when the U.S. process is complete, we will engage with the complete U.S. process. But whataboutism, if and maybe, is not something that we expend our energy on at any given point in time.
Crispin Piri, thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it.